Yeah, it's us again, if you're in the last session in this hall. So my name's Anthony Dona. I work for digital science. I've been in the sector for 8 odd years now working with solutions like this. Before that, I'm a biochemist by background, or an analytical chemist, I should say. What today is about, I'm also Sydney-based, I should say, so those digital identifiers or those digital licenses work really well until you go into one of the antiquated RSL club systems and you're being asked to put your license into it, where that falls over, unfortunately. And legally, there's people born in 2007 walking around those places to do the maths for you, which is unbelievable, isn't it? Anyway, I'm here to plug our report, so I'm not going to talk about our data systems or workflow systems. I'm going to talk about a report that we do annually. This one was last year's report. We don't normally release them at about November, December each year, and this one was released last December. And what we do is we go to the sector and we ask researchers about a number of questions about their attitude towards open data, so sharing their data, making their data open and allowing statisticians or bioinformaticians or whoever it might be that might benefit from their data to use that. So essentially, what is their attitude towards making their data freely and legally available? We've gone a step further in last year's report, which we don't normally do, or we haven't done in the past, where we're looking to see what is actually going on. So we've scraped data from publications. Well, actually, I'm going to go to the next slide to show this. So Dimensions Analytics is one of our data solutions, and what we do in Dimensions is we index publications, awarded grant applications, patents, policy documents. I've got an example here where I've just searched for the term data availability across all of our record types, and here is an example of a publication and what we collect on a single publication. All that metadata is kind of captured and indexed within our database. One of the things that we capture here that I haven't actually highlighted is the acknowledgement section as well as data availability statements. So we have all that text and you can analyse that text. So where people in publications are saying you can find the data within this repository or wherever you might be. Some people will actually say, please contact the author for data. There's a number of different types of ways of citing data or referring back to data, but we're capturing that and we're using that in this sort of analysis. We also, one of the data types that we index as well, and it should be said, are data sets. So I think there's now 32 million or something like that, data sets that are found within repositories. Many people will know the sorts of repositories that are used across New Zealand and Australia. But in this case, we're indexing that and the metadata on those data types and linking out to those data sets. So you can run a search for genomics of zebrafish, and you'll find data sets that have been made freely and legally available. So we're sourcing that information and analysing it. There's other data citation indexes. The Chan Zuckerberg initiative is looking to make data freely and legally available, and you can from there find where data is being cited that correlates quite nicely with our data. So that's just to show that that's what's going on. There is a very, very obvious trend as well. This is from the report on the data citation corpus, which is, I've got abbreviated up there as DCC. Make data, MDC is make data, it's a welcome count, thank you very much. I'd forgotten that one. It's a Wellcome Trust initiative, though I can tell you about it. If you do a bit of a search for that, it's a Wellcome Trust initiative to essentially link data to the publications that are coming off of it. This here are various regions. I'm going to show New Zealand data in a second. I've kept it hidden for me for now. I know I recognise that New Zealand's on that, not on that, but I'm going to get there and actually break down some of the universities and some of the funding agencies within New Zealand. But in this case, there is a very, very clear trend from the year 2000. Less than 1% of papers were basically referring back to freely and legally available data. In many regions now, you're seeing that kind of jump up above 5%, and in some cases up above 10%. Really very interesting. Some of the regions that are forward thinking on this, and it's largely due to policy, or it's probably due to a number of things, but what we're seeing is policy in various parts of the world driving the acknowledgement of data and the connecting of data to publications. Here I'm comparing a few funding agencies that also, like you saw, I think earlier, someone showed a slide on MB and the policy on making data, the open data policy that they have. You'll see that trend on published papers that are citing or acknowledging funders as the funder for that publication. You'll see trends vary across different funding agencies based on the policies that were implemented at different times. I'm not going to go into all these. You'll obviously see different trends as well across different organisations. There's the trend across the globe currently. This is papers analysed. This is simply papers from 2019, I think, to 2022, so recent papers, and the percentage of them that cite back to the raw data, and you can see Australia and New Zealand are both quite progressive on that map. So you're seeing that kind of, well, this region being quite a leader in that sort of progressive attitude towards it. So that's what we've analysed there. Now, I alluded to the fact earlier that there's very, very different ways of creating or wording a data availability statement. Some will simply cite the repository and the link that you can find the data in. Some will say, please contact author. Some will say, data is not available. So we're able to break that down and essentially put them into different buckets. We're seeing differences in terms of how that's changing from year on year. So 2002 was very, very different to 2019, which is very, very different to 2022. And we're seeing more and more that repositories are being used or cited back to than data being made available on request, for example. I just want to, you probably will have heard this story, but I want to talk to a point as to why a researcher. I'm a researcher by background, and it really, when I was researching as my postdoc, it really never occurred to me as an individual why I should be taking the hard drives that were in kind of my top drawer and putting them in a repository for others to access. It was not part of the research culture, I guess, through that time. This example was a Nobel Prize winner last year, or the year before last, which is your AlphaFold. So what they've done is they've taken a model and trained it based on all the protein structure data within the protein bank, or protein data bank, I should say, taken all that protein structural data, trained an artificially intelligent model, which then enables, given a string, a protein string, what the structure of that protein will look like. Now, they've done this to a level of accuracy which is actually quite incredible. Previous to this, the way that a protein structure would be found is a PhD student would take the protein, purify it, and run experiments on it for 3 to 4 years to understand exactly how that protein looks, so you could then understand exactly how the protein works. So before AlphaFold, essentially there was 190,000 odd protein structures that were fairly well known, and all of them were done through that methodology. Training that bank, there's now, within the AlphaFold model, more than 200 million structures of proteins that can be searched and picked up. It's all, again, it's open source, freely available to researchers. So if they're working on a particular protein, it's highly likely that the structure is really very well known. Now, if you think about how much time that saved researchers, it's unbelievable, but it's also worth thinking about the money that saved the kind of research world and how much experimentation, time and money that's kind of progressed things. And that was the Nobel Prize in 2024. So last year, the three from the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded to the 3 people there. We're seeing this already kind of being used to quicken the advancements of drug development, because we are aware of how a protein will work and be structured. So that's a publication from a couple of years ago based on that open data and using that open data. So looking into, I'm actually going to fly through a couple of these slides because I want to get to the New Zealand-based data so that you can have a look at some of that sort of stuff. But the data citation corpus is worth looking at there. These are papers citing a data set in the data citation corpus by various funders across the globe. If we look at New Zealand as a region, you'll see generally not as progressive as Australia when it comes to data citation availability statements, or Sweden and the Netherlands, which are largely leading these initiatives, but generally doing very, very well against kind of other parts of the world. You will see the same sorts of differences across different funders. There has been policies that have been implemented by the Department of Health in Australia as well as the ARC. There as well, you'll get initiatives and policies that have been developed by MB, and so we may well see these change. The dotted lines there are actually dotted lines to what the next year looked like. Thank you very much. I'm going to fly through this. What 2003 and actually the data now, we should actually be able to dig a lot of that out. Universities here, there's a couple of things going on here. You might find that the University of Otago looks like it's doing better there. There's differences not only across universities based on the attitudes of researchers, but also in the areas that they're publishing. So you'll find data availability statements are more likely to be found within the medical sciences and some of the sciences that would often refer to raw data, whereas, and the University of Otago may well be publishing in that sort of area more often than the other universities here, but you're also seeing differences in attitude towards researchers, not just across research area, but across different organisations where we filter by certain areas or certain FOR codes, for example, fields of research. This is an example of where they're coming from. So the NIH, there's a slide in a couple. We're starting to see these sorts of things pop up from international, and I don't know, I haven't been able to find any Australia or New Zealand examples, but there's funding that's being attributed to the development of things like the data citation corpus and the Wellcome Trust initiatives that are creating links to data and making that sort of thing more easily accessible. And so we're seeing that drive across various funding agencies, percentages or numbers of publications that are actually not only acknowledging the funders but also acknowledging the data and that sort of thing. I would encourage you, this is the last slide, if you do want to have a look at that report, it's a fairly interesting read. A lot of that data is taken from the report, but you can come past our booth. We have a booth in the centre, or you can scan that QR code and it will take you to that report that's already been uploaded into Figshare, which is one of our repository solutions, and you're able to read it there. And thank you very much for coming along to the talk, and yeah, cheers, enjoy your afternoon.